When I changed my perspective and I looked at it as, well, actually, what did this abusive relationship teach me about me? What was it trying to teach me about me? Well, it was teaching me that I didn't love myself. It was teaching me that I didn't think I was worthy. It was teaching me that I thought that I deserved to be treated this way, that I deserved to be punished or I deserved this suffering. It was teaching me the whole entire time. So when I can switch it like that instead of being angry with my ex-partner or looking at this life as like, "Oh my gosh, it's happening to me and poor me." Instead, I'm looking at it as an empowering way.
Welcome to Radiant Mom Rising. Get ready to be inspired, empowered, and uplifted. I'm your host, Mary Dibble, and in each episode, we dive into amazing stories, insights, and conversations that help moms like you chase your dreams and embrace your worth. Let's rise and shine together.
Have you ever felt like you were stuck in a cycle that wasn't your own? Maybe it's a belief you were raised with, a toxic relationship, or a pattern you just can't seem to break. Today, I have an incredible guest, Brooke Kekos, whose story will inspire you to take your power back. Brooke was born into a cult and later found herself in an abusive relationship, but she refused to let those experiences define her. Instead, she found healing, became an RTT therapist, and now helps women just like you reclaim their identities and create the lives they truly desire. This episode is all about transformation, healing, and stepping into the most authentic version of yourself. Let's dive in. Welcome back, mamas. I have Brooke with me. Thank you, Brooke, for joining us on the show today.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, awesome. We're really excited to get to know you and your story more. So, how about you introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I'm Brooke Kekos. I'm an RTT therapist and a trauma recovery coach. So I really help empower women to break the cycles, the toxic cycles of abusive relationships, to heal from any type of abuse, religious abuse, as well as abusive relationships. So I want to help women to find their power and reclaim their lives and find their authentic self, because a lot of times we lose our identity in those relationships and in those type of belief systems. So it's about being able to discover who you really are, what you want to believe, and really learn how to create your life the way you want to create it.
Oh yeah, that's amazing and interesting that that's your area. So let's get into your story. Tell us a little bit about your journey that has led you to help women in this way.
Sure. So as you saw, I help women with religious abuse. So I was actually raised in a cult. So I was born into a cult. It was my parents were in it, my grandparents were in it, and their parents were in it. So it was very generational, and I didn't know any different. So that was kind of, my whole existence until I was 36 years old. So that was pretty crazy to live inside of a space where it was very restrictive, very oppressive. Like I felt like I was constantly not enough, always having to strive to do more. I had a very interesting childhood because my father was narcissistic. So he really wanted us to present ourselves a certain way. I kind of had to be the perfect little good girl. I had to dress a certain way, present myself a certain way. There was a lot expected from me. There was a lot of pressure to perform. And so I became very rebellious when I became a teenager because I finally was like, you know what? I want to find my way. I want to break out of this mold and I want to finally do me and discover myself. And that was not okay. It was not okay because of the religion I was in. That was not okay because that's not what my father wanted me to do. And so it became even more restrictive in what they would want to do. I mean, I felt like my parents at one time were just kind of stalking me. Like every move I couldn't, they were restricting what I did, who I could talk to, all of these things. And I wanted to just break free from this. So that was really interesting and having that experience. And then I ended up in an abusive relationship for 17 years because of everything I had experienced prior. So that's why I do what I do because I've known it very intimately. I've known abuse very intimately and I've known, sexual abuse, domestic violence. I've lived these things. And so I decided, one day when I finally realized I needed to heal and I went on that healing journey, I realized it's time for me to change. And I wanted to help others change too because I had walked that path already. And that's why I do what I do.
That's amazing that you help others. And you mentioned 36 is that's when you left the cult?
That is when I left the cult and the abusive relationship
Okay.
all at the same time.
Okay. Oh my goodness. That's very brave, courageous. At what point did you finally realize that you were in a cult?
So well, honestly, probably not until my then husband found out that there was some child sex abuse cases that were kind of going viral, if you will, because it was out in public. It was in Australia. And I started to kind of question. He was totally questioning the religion. And then I started to question it because he was questioning it. And then we both kind of went down this rabbit hole of discovery of realizing that we were even in a cult because it's confusing because you're like, well, why didn't you know? But I mean, like, if you're born into it, like,
Yeah.
you believe what your parents believe, we kind of
Yeah.
have that same belief system that they do, and we don't question it because we're taught not to question our parents and we're taught not to question authority. And so I was like, okay, this is what it was. But when we discovered this, that's when we both said, okay, there's something more to this and we need to leave.
Yeah. I'm and it's tragic. So because that's something that people don't get a lot of times because they say that, how did you not know? How could because you're conditioned and
Mhm.
it all starts with being a child. And that's what's so sad. It's like you hear these stories of children being abused by their own parents or by people and they're almost encouraged or made to believe that it's normal. That's just the way it is. Abuse is the way it is. It's the way of life because that's all they know. So of course, when you see stories too of people who grow up and end up doing evil and doing bad things, it's like that's all they know. They've never been shown love or taught a different way to live. Doesn't mean that anyone can't change, but for them, unfortunately, some of them don't. And it's great to see someone like you who is able to find your way, get out of that. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about how life was like when you finally made that move and started on your own.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I want to also just highlight too, because what you talked
Yeah.
about, like leaving the religion, you're conditioned
Yeah.
and you don't know better. Because for a woman that's maybe listening that has also been in an abusive relationship or currently maybe even in one, right? And is kind of questioning things. This is nothing about your intelligence.
Yeah.
I used to have like a lot of shame, like, and be like, oh my gosh, I must be stupid because I didn't realize this. But, I was conditioned in the religion and then I was also conditioned in the abusive relationship. And you literally don't know what you're in until you've been able to detach from it and kind of look at things differently. And because I had no idea it was an abusive relationship. And when I discovered, I was like, wow, the relationship is so similar to the cult that I've been in. And I started to see the similarities of like the control, the manipulation, the lies, the submissiveness that you were required to do. So I just kind of wanted to point that out because
No.
when I left, it was like a really big like aha moment and like scary at the same time because I was like, wow, I'm leaving both things that I have been so attached to. My entire belief system, my entire identity was these two things. And that was scary. So, speaking on the fact of leaving both of these things at the same time was like taking a huge leap of faith and just being like, well, I don't know what's going to happen on the other side of this, but I don't resonate with any of these things anymore. It didn't feel in alignment for me anymore. I used to think, oh, maybe I'll fake it and I'll still be part of the religion. And I told myself, there is no way that I can fake this. I can't. It's just not me. And that's what made me really walk away was recognizing this wasn't being authentic and I had to leave.
Yeah. And I'm proud of you because that's not easy. I mean, like you say, you've been in something your whole life. It's all you've ever
Yeah.
known to step out and be courageous to just figure it out and find. So I would love for you to speak more into that for someone listening if maybe they're in a place where they're wanting to do that. And of course, that fear, like you say, it's scary. The unknown is really what holds a lot of people back. The comfort
Yeah.
almost, even though it sucks. I'm sure, being in that situation, it's like it's a sense of comfort because I've been in an abusive relationship before and I get that. There's a fear of leaving of what could happen. And there's that
Mhm.
fear of like, well, how do I make it on my own? Like, what's next? Like, what do I do? So I'd love for you to speak in your experience of like how you picked the pieces up and what did you find along the way that really helped you stick to it?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece, if anybody's been thinking about this, is do your research. When I kind of discovered that I was in, the cult and the abusive relationship, I started like deep diving into cults and what that means and to narcissism and abuse and just finding the key components so that I could see the red flags so I could understand what this actually even is. Because I wasn't taught it, right? We're not taught this in school. No one teaches these things about life. And so it was about being able to get, okay, I need to get a lot of awareness. So I first started with awareness, and that's what I always tell people, start there. Okay. Once you have the awareness, you have power. And I think often when you're in these type of situations, you feel powerless. And so why not empower yourself with getting the knowledge and getting the understanding of what you did just break free from so that it can help you kind of understand, okay, this is what was happening. Because when you're in that type of situation, the brain fog, the cognitive dissonance that comes up, the lack of ability to make decisions, feel confusion is so real. It's so real. When I left, I always talk about this because trauma bonded relationships are like, it's like a chemical addiction. And that partner is like my personal drug of heroin. And when I left that relationship, I literally thought I was, like, basically detoxing from a drug. And because I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I was manic, I was totally completely in panic and anxiety. At that one point, I, like, went 3 days without sleeping because I was so anxious, I couldn't even relax, my nervous system was so dysregulated. So I like to tell people that this is a process, but it does get better, like, it may feel like hell in the moment, but when you're on the other side, you're like, "Oh my gosh, I got through that, and that was absolutely amazing, and I feel like a million times better now that I'm on the other side of this." It's just about this process of getting to the other side and knowing that, you know what, if I can do it, you can do it, and it's all possible for you because there's nothing that you can't walk through. We're resilient. Our human spirits are resilient, and we're really able to get through so much.
We truly are. And, for me, one of the things that I wish I had back then was someone like me who had, been there, supported me, helped me to know that it is possible to get to the other side. It is okay to feel the feelings that I was feeling and that it's not going to last, that I will get through it and I will be stronger for it. And I love that you're here now being that for someone else because I think that's an important part of it. It's like, oh, I don't know about you, but a lot of us, we go through with these things alone. Like we already carrying so much of the shame, the guilt, the depression, the unknown, and yet we're still we still deny ourselves that ability to ask for help, to get the support we need. But a lot of times without that, it just prolongs that that suffering. So I this is why I think it's so important to talk about these things and to have these conversations and to do what we do because our goal is to not make you feel like you have to suffer any longer than you need to and to help you get through that in a very positive and empowering way that you not only come out stronger, but that you really, like you say, find yourself again. Like you get to now really like live your life for you. And women for so long, we have felt like we had to play these roles. And now we're all realizing, no, like I can still be a mom. I can still be a wife. I can still, be, an entrepreneur or whatever, but I also am me and I get to do what I need for me. I get to go explore and figure out what do I like? What do I want for me? And I think this is a powerful message and so many moms need to hear, because like you say, you get so lost in the sauce and what you're living in for so many. And it's sad that we deny ourselves that.
For sure. Yeah, and I think a lot of the time it's because it's a trauma response, right? Where we like think that can do it all by ourselves. We become really hyper independent, and then we become people pleasers, right? We're like, well, I got to take care of everybody else to make everybody else happy or to get love, and we don't realize that actually, no, we really do deserve to discover what we want and what we like and what we don't like, and to be able to use our voice and have this humble presence, but yet also really assertiveness, right? I think this is the part of being a woman that we all get to kind of discover. And I don't think, for me, it didn't happen until my late 30s where I started to just kind of discover myself. And, oftentimes, yeah, I mean, oftentimes that's what happens, right? In the healing journey. I feel like in your 20s and your early 30s, you're like on this discovery process and you're kind of getting lost a little bit and you're doing some stuff that you're gonna probably, "Oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that," but it's like you're also learning, and that's what I think the journey is too, is it's like, you're learning from everything, and I always tell everybody, when you can change your perspective, everything changes. So, the way I look at it, I used to be like, "I'm the victim. Oh my gosh, I was in a cult, and I was abused, and I had all of these things happen to me," right? I had this very victim consciousness that I really carried around, like, I was like, "I gotta hold on to this." But when I changed my perspective and I looked at it as, well, actually, what did this abusive relationship teach me about me? What was it trying to teach me about me? Well, it was teaching me that I didn't love myself. It was teaching me that I didn't think I was worthy. It was teaching me that I thought that I deserved to be treated this way, that I deserved to be punished or I deserved this suffering. It was teaching me the whole entire time. So when I can switch it like that instead of being angry with my ex-partner or looking at this life as like, "Oh my gosh, it's happening to me and poor me." Instead, I'm looking at it as an empowering way, and I feel like that's the empowering part of being able to switch your mindset and look at things from a higher perspective, because it taught me and it got me to the space that I'm at right now talking to you today.
I love that. Oh, yes. I 100% agree. It is truly what transforms so many.
Mhm.
For me personally,
Yes.
absolutely. Was like that you're right, realizing you're the common denominator in all these things. And for me, that was one of the greatest things that I learned was that, what you believe is what you attract, like or who you are is what you attract. And so I was like, oh, wow, Mary, I've always had that low self esteem. I always had that belief that I wasn't worthy. And so it made complete sense when I realized, hello, of course I'm attracting all these bad people for my life. And so you're right. When you shift that perspective and you also really start doing the work too, like, really loving yourself, really embracing self care, embracing your worth, switching, reframing that negative self talk, reframing all that negativity that you had for so long, you start seeing things. Doors of opportunities really do start happening. And I think there's some power in this, like right here, just having these talks and sharing and being vulnerable and allowing ourselves to really just find ourselves and be okay that we're not perfect. We're just everyday people, just choosing to bet on ourselves, to believe that we're worthy. We believe that our message alone is meant to help someone out there. There's someone out there who
Mhm.
needs to hear what we have to share so that they can choose for themselves as well, that they're ready to step it up and be like, I'm not going to deal with this anymore. I'm not going to be afraid anymore. We're always going to be afraid, right? To a point, but we're going to do it anyways, right? We're going to keep stepping past that fear so we can build that confidence, build that, through courage and just really make our lives what we want it. And you don't know what it's going to be until you start just doing, right? And so it's so fun to
Yeah.
see this right here, the outcomes that unfold as you just start doing one little step at a time. It's what I'm all about too. And I just enjoy these. It's so fulfilling for me having talks and meeting people like you. I love that you were able to survive that. And now you can help others. Tell us what that's been like too, working with new clients and helping them through the process. Like what has that experience been like for you?
So it has been actually so transformational for myself on so many levels because I've been doing this for 4 years. I didn't used to do this, obviously. This was really, it threw me into this type of purpose and really giving me a space where I could express all that I had been through my work, by creating content. And it's like witnessing, I work with a lot of domestic violence survivors, and a lot of the times, sometimes it can be a little bit triggering because you'll hear these stories and you'll be working with women and their trauma and you'll be in the depths. I always like to say, I'm like, we get in the dark stuff, there's the emotions and there's all of these things happening. But at the same time, it really helps me to see them come out the other side, right? We can sit in the darkness of what we've been through, but we also can come into the light, which means it's like being able to recognize, oh my gosh, they kind of open in this new door to see that there is something more possible for them, that they're not always going to feel this way. And that is the gift that keeps giving. I feel like every time that I have a client and I see her transform her life, honestly, I have men as well, that they see them transform their life. This is why I do what I do. Like, I do it with passion, I do it with purpose, and it helps me also to, just literally meet people where they're at. Because as much work as I've done on myself, I now can just recognize and see and witness where people are at and really be able to give them what they need in that moment. So they have that support. Like we were talking about support earlier. I did it all alone, and not well. I was fumbling around and I was like trying to find my way. It was like a girl in a dark room with no door.
Yeah.
And it's just this is not meant to be alone. Like the journey of being a human is not meant to be alone. Like we're meant to like kind of gather resources and support as we kind of go on this journey, because it makes life easier. It makes things easier to be able to have a safe place to say what you need to say and to process the things that you need to process. And now I'm sure you probably have your own mentor, coach, therapist, whatever. Like I'm like, I always have somebody that I'm working with, because it helps me advance in my personal development. It helps me see the blind spots where I cannot see them, because we all have them. Literally everybody. Everybody. If you're like, oh, I got it all figured out, you do not have it all figured out.
Those are the ones I
Promise
wouldn't.
you that.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust those people. Yeah.
That is ego saying I've got it all figured out. You do not have it all figured out. So it's more like, you know what? We need support in this journey, and just to own it, and that's about being authentic.
Yeah, it is. And I know that's not easy for a lot of people, because a lot of people don't really even know themselves, right? But that's why you do these things. You won't figure it out until you get out there and find yourself, because we get to make our life what we want it. But a lot of us don't believe that. And I didn't for so long. I mean, I'm like you, I was a hot mess trying to figure
Mhm.
things out on my own as well. And, as a mom too, like having children, I never really had support by other moms. I never had mom friends really. What was really hard for me at one point was when I was having my second round of kids later in life. I had a friend who also, we had been best friends for so long. And she had kids around the same age as me. And I thought, oh my God, this is going to bring us even closer. We can have play dates. And then it's like she just ghosted me, and it broke me to pieces, because I was like, I thought she was genuinely my friend. And, in life that happens. But I've also learned, sometimes people are just there for seasons. And I've come to terms with that, understanding that. But at the same time, my goal is to really attract the right people for me. I know there's my people out there and I will attract them. I will find them. And I have found, through this journey alone, I have found some incredible women that I've connected with
Mhm.
every day, all the time. And I love them for that. And I'm so grateful. And I know that there's even more to come. Like I said, I can't wait to have that. But yeah, it's really hard when you're really trying to do these big life changes on your own. And I really
Yeah.
encourage anyone listening that if you're feeling alone, first of all, know you're not, but also know that there are people like me and Brooke, depending on your situation, where you're at, what you need, that are here to give you that space, to be there for you, to cheer you on, to support you, to love on you. So until you start loving on yourself, because that's our goal, is we want you to have that confidence, that love, that care, that empowerment for yourself, so that you can go out there in the world and make what you're meant to make happen, you know?
Yes. I love that. I love how you said that, because it's like, you're right. We're loving on them until they learn how to love themselves.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what it is, right? They just need someone to show them like a compassionate, loving space that feels safe. And that's often, coming with the people that I work with, it's like they haven't had experienced that
Right.
often. They haven't experienced that in a relationship. Maybe they haven't experienced that from their parents. Maybe they haven't even experienced that really in friendships. Often, when you're talking about the journey of, you know, people kind of leaving and coming and going, that's part of that healing journey, right? The more you heal, the more you love yourself, the more the toxicity kind of drops off.
Yeah.
And we often have like this really big grieving process, because we're like, oh my gosh, why am I losing all of these people? But at the same time, well, those people don't resonate with you anymore. They're not your people anymore
Yeah.
because they were just there for something and they weren't really there for you.
Yeah.
And it's more of like being able to recognize that. And even though it's a difficult process of
Oh,
that grief, it's about being able to just say, oh, okay, well, you know what? I can love them. They created a space in my life, but I also can let them go. And I had to learn that, leaving a cult community because when I left, I lost my family, I lost my friends, I lost my whole entire community that I'd thought was going to be there. I thought that they were going to be my forever, right? And then they weren't. And so that was like a huge blow to be like, wow, okay,
yeah.
I guess this is conditional love and conditional love sucks. Like, I didn't realize what this was.
Yeah.
But it's about, recognizing, well, they didn't love me for me.
Yeah.
They loved me for something else, what they thought, a belief system. And that no longer resonated. So, it's about just, we have to let people go and that's okay too.
Yeah, it is, it is, and a lot of times it's for the best. As hard as it is, as hard as it feels in the moment, because I resonate with that a lot, and I've also learned though, like, I get it. Like, especially like you're right, hindsight. It's always like one thing when you look back and you're like, you know, it's a good thing I had that distance from that person because they would not have
Mhm.
been with me where I was in my vibrations and my energy and where I was wanting to go. And they might have hindered me or kept me back from really believing in myself or taking that action when I needed to. So it's like it just sometimes it's one of those things in life, like you just don't always see what's on the other side, but it's like if you can just learn to trust the way things just work out. Things just always have a way of working out, and we just my goal is to help people to have that faith within themselves and in the God, the universe, what they believe in, and really just keep going even through the hard times because everyone we all have our ups and downs. I mean, that's life, but it's all about just, motivating yourself. Keep going. Never giving up. Right? Yeah, it's quite the
Yep.
journey.
It's about, yeah. And courage, I think, is, being afraid, but doing it anyway.
Yeah.
Like, you keep going. And that's where you find the sweet spots, where you find the gifts in your life, the
Yeah.
magic stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely the magic. Absolutely. And Brooke, I would love to talk about your kids. Tell me a little bit about tell me a little bit about them and then the experience with all of this for, as far as what you've been through.
Yeah, of course. So I have two boys, they're 18 and 12. So they have been honestly the two little lights in my life that have really kept me going. Honestly, when I left the cult and the abusive relationship, there was times where I was like, I don't know if I really want to stay here because, it was difficult. It was, I felt very alone. I felt very confused. I thought I'd been betrayed by God. I thought I'd been, was left out alone. And they kept me getting up every day. They kept me wanting to keep going to show them that, what, I can be strong. I still can be a mom because being a mom has been like one of the biggest things in my life that I've taken so seriously and have been so proud of because I love these boys and I do everything I do it for them, right? I want them to see that they can be strong and they can get through hardship and adverse things, but still be able to come out on the other side. And I think that's been beautiful because they lost their dad in 2020. So that was really kind of our pivoting point for all of us. We had a lot of grief. Even though we were divorced at the time, there was grief for myself. I witnessed their grief losing their dad from this tragic, overdose. So he just never found himself after we left the cult. And my kids, they really suffered in this time. It was like literally right during COVID. So COVID happened and their dad passed. And it was like, it was a very, very dark, dark year for us. And that was a huge process of learning all about grief and this huge loss that we had in our life. But what came from it was we got closer, we got through it. And I also learned how to help them with their grief and learn how to deal with my own grief. And, it was all a learning process for all three of us, to be honest. But from that, I birthed a book called The Grief Monster. And so I authored a book called The Grief Monster. So it's this children book and it's about a little boy that loses his dad and has to face his grief monster. And it helps kids to really process grief and understand grief. And to know that they can ask for support. So I noticed that in this industry, like there wasn't a lot of books about grief for little kids. And I was just like, we need more of this in this place because grief is messy. We need help to process it, especially as children.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. And yeah, I hope that is I hope you shared that because I'd love to make sure that people have a chance if anyone is experiencing that, maybe wants to share that for their kids, they can get themselves a copy. I think that's beautiful. And oh my gosh, first of all, I am so sorry for the loss, especially during COVID. Were they even able, because I know that was a crazy time. Like a lot of people couldn't even go to people's like funerals or see them. Were they at least able to were you all able to put them to rest and be there?
Yeah, we
Okay.
definitely were. We were able to our own celebration of life and, be
Okay.
able to honor him and whatnot. So that was good.
Yes. Okay, good.
Um,
They got that. Yeah. Oh
yeah,
man. And I can't imagine them seeing you and how you, because they obviously grew up some within the cult.
they did. Yes. Yeah.
So
My old grew up until he was about 12 is when we left. So he was definitely indoctrinated in the cult. Like he was actually very angry and upset when we left because he was stood by it. He was trained
yeah.
to do that. It was kind of the same way that I felt when I first started figuring out that it was a cult. But so it was a process for all of us to kind of unravel these teachings. My youngest didn't really resonate with it because he was little. He still didn't have any
Yeah.
connection with it.
Yeah.
But my oldest definitely did. So he in himself he's so strong because he lost his identity too. And
Yeah.
he was able to really come out of it and become stronger on the other side of it.
That's amazing. I love to hear these, like to see that the impact too, what you have as a mom on your own kids is incredible and empowering because you were that role model for them. You helped not only save them from something that indoctrinated them, but you also gave them the opportunity to make their own life. And I mean,
Mhm.
18, my goodness, he's just getting started with like, really on that adult
Yeah.
path, huh?
Yep.
That,
He's on that adult path and he's like, man, I wish I was still in high school. I was like, I know it's what everybody says, once you start to be an adult, you're like, wait a second, I want to be a kid again. But he has his life before him and he has the freedom to choose what he wants. And that's what I'm most happy about is that he has the freedom to be who he wants to be and discover that. And I never got that. So I'm so happy that I was able to give that to my children.
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing about your kids. I think that that is awesome. So, Brooke, I'd love to ask too if someone was listening right now and would love to talk with you about maybe working with you through some of their traumas, tell us where's the best place for them to find you.
Sure. Yeah. So it's lifecoachinggoddess.com. They can find me, that's my website. They can find me on any social media. I am out there everywhere. So they can contact me, have a free consultation, or just, contact me to chat about, something that they're needing to process. And, if they have questions, I have a lot of resources that can help people that are in these type of situations.
Oh, that's amazing. And I'll make sure to include her links in the show notes as well. And of course, I always love to end with, is there any final piece of advice that you'd like to share with the listeners today?
I always tell people if you change your thoughts, you change your life. So if you start to learn what your thoughts are on an everyday basis, which we have like 70 to 80,000 thoughts a day, but often they're the same repetitive thoughts that we think every day. So if you start to discover, the things that you're really telling yourself, the stories you're carrying, and changing those and rewriting those stories, you can really truly change your life and your reality to what you want to create, how you really want it to be, and how you really want to feel in your life. And because you are the source, you have all the power.
Yeah, you sure do. I love it. That was a wonderful, wonderful piece of advice. And again, anyone listening, if you are in a place where you're scared or you're unhappy and you're ready to take action to leave a toxic situation, relationship, I encourage you to reach out, get the support. Brooke's here for you. I'm here for you. Anyone's here for you. There's so much resources, so many people out here who want to see you thrive and really create a life that you love and deserve. So, again, Brooke, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us on the show.
Thank you for having me, Mary.
Brooke is an empowering soul, and I am grateful to have had her on the show to share her story and her amazing transformation. Here are the key takeaways from today's episode. Your past does not define you. No matter where you come from or what you've been through, you have the power to rewrite your story and break free from toxic cycles. Healing begins with awareness. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. Recognizing harmful patterns is the first step towards transformation. Grief is a part of healing. Letting go of old beliefs, relationships, or past traumas can feel like a loss, but embracing the grieving process is essential for growth. Self-love is your foundation. When you learn to truly love and accept yourself, you no longer settle for less than you deserve. You don't have to heal alone. Community and support are crucial. Seeking help from coaches, therapists, or trusted friends can make all the difference in your journey. Your narrative can be rewritten. The stories you tell yourself shape your reality. Shifting your perspective and beliefs can unlock a whole new version of your life. Resilience is within you. No matter how broken you may feel, you have the strength to rise, heal, and create a future filled with freedom and authenticity. Be sure to visit Brooke at lifecoachinggoddess.com and get connected with her today. If you are a mom in business looking to make new, authentic connections with other like-minded moms, be sure to visit me at marydibblecoaching.com to sign up for the next monthly networking and mastermind event coming up to help grow your network, collaborate, connect, and get support on your entrepreneurial journey as a mom. I hope to see you there and get to know you better. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and share this with your fellow mom friends and leave us a review. I truly appreciate you all tuning in. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Until next time, much love.